troubles with following the streams, so I'm going to take this time to maybe talk a little bit about how to be a consistent player. Not a whole lot of talk, but I do want to discuss it a little bit. So consistency, first let me kind of define what I mean when I say consistency, because for everybody that could mean something different, and I want kind of like a set definition of what it is, the meaning behind what it is when I say consistency. So the idea of consistency for me, what I would define it as, is a level of play that you can hit and the level of play that feels natural for you. And what I mean when I say the level of play that feels natural for you is it's something that you feel comfortable with. For instance, if you're playing bad, you probably, relatively speaking, whatever you consider to be bad, you're probably not feeling very comfortable with that play. So it wouldn't feel very natural to you. It's not what you feel like is the natural level of play. And what I want to talk about is how to raise that consistency up to a natural, more comfortable level for you. And so that's what I mean when I say being a consistent player. And to a certain extent, what the focus of this stream is going to be about is raising that consistency level and bringing it up to the point of, well, not necessarily to the point of your peak play, because your peak play, I find, is almost always something it's kind of like this untouchable, weird thing that only happens every once in a while, and you don't really understand why you're playing at your peak level. It's just, you know, you get really in the zone, you get really in the moment, and you're just killing it, man. You're destroying it. So I don't think that's something that's necessarily touchable, something that you can push yourself into being able to do, but I do think there are things that you can do to make yourself, on average, be closer to that level. Thank you, Corinzo, dude. I really appreciate it. He says, awesome, keep up the good job streaming. You're building a great audience. I mean, it was a PM, but I really appreciate it. I'm fine with saying that out loud. But, so the way you improve your consistency is less self-analytical and less critical and more of just doing the same thing over and over. And I know that's the thing that people say to do a lot, is they say just play more. But I don't think that really encompasses the entire idea of improving. And beyond that, when I say doing the same thing over and over, I still don't want it to just be literally only the same thing over and over. I don't think that's actually a good way to raise your level of consistency. I don't think it's helpful. So, how do you become a more consistent player? Again, it's a matter of doing the same thing over and over, but in what sense and in what direction do you take that? What other things can you do other than doing the same thing over and over? I know for me, personally, when I play, it's a matter of picking this level that I want to be and playing consistently towards that level for a few hours. So, like, let's say I'm doing this song and I want to be more consistent with this song. As opposed to the normal, what I do on my stream in terms of content, the norm is I'll play through a song. I usually try to go all the way through the song, and I look back and I'm very self-critical and self-analytical, and then I try to usually pick one or two focus points for the next playthrough of things that I would want to improve on. And that's less being consistent and more gearing yourself to improve in the future. It's kind of a different style of improvement, and it sounds a little bit weird to say that, because when you think about it, it's like, well, if you're improving on these aspects of your play, aren't you going to become a more consistent player? Overall, yes, but it's something that takes a lot of time. If I want to be more consistent immediately, it's really just a matter of playing something a lot, doing a lot of retries, and whenever you make a mistake that you're not happy with, you just immediately restart the song, you focus on that mistake, and then if you don't make that mistake, good job, keep going, wait until the next mistake. and it's just a little bit different in terms of trying to improve. And for me personally, I find that it really helps me raise the level of consistent play that I'm doing, because I'm more focused on the immediate area of my play as opposed to my overall long-term goals. And that's a very valid thing to be practicing. When you're practicing, you still do want to make sure that you're playing more towards your peak level, as opposed to, okay, we're going to improve a lot in the future. Both of these things are very equally important, and I want to stress this a lot when people are watching my streams for education, that it's not necessarily all about being super heavy self-critical and analytical. I do, again, like I've said this so many times, it's such an important part of improving as a player, but there is some merit to trying to be consistent with your level of play, and just doing the same thing over and over and grinding it out. That will always be a part of improving, as well as the other things that I usually discuss on my stream. So I kind of wanted to approach that today. I kind of wanted to acknowledge that and say, hey, this is a thing that you still should do to a certain level. I mean, honestly, whenever this is an idea that applies to many facets of life, and obviously not just OSU, but whenever you're trying to do something and you're trying to do it well, and you're trying to become good at it, there's always going to be hours and hours of work, and the repetitive grind, that's just a fact of life. That's something that you kind of just have to accept and work towards, and understand that that's what you have to do. And so I kind of just wanted to acknowledge that today. I wanted to say that while being self-analytical and self-critical is very important in making sure you're staying fresh and sharp, and you're paying attention to your mistakes, there is some level where you have to just mindlessly grind things. There is some level. And I just wanted to give a nod to that aspect of improving, because I do think it is important towards being a consistent player in OSU at the very least. I think if you want to be consistent, you do have to do this stuff over and over again. That doesn't necessarily mean that you will improve doing this stuff over and over again, and that doesn't necessarily mean that, here, let me pause this so I can think. So if you're mindlessly grinding things over and over again, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll improve in the long run. That's why most of my streams content is focused on the long run, being constructive and analytical towards yourself. But they're kind of symbiotic in the sense that you do have to also mindlessly grind things to play to a good level to some extent. That you have to be doing both things. You have to be doing both things.